Anyway, apparently we've got action on this game being another good one with a little bit of free hockey. So let's bring on NHL.com's Troy Perlowitz. What's up?
Thanks so much for having me on. It was as a hockey fan, I don't think we could have asked for a better start to this finals. It's the hockey's been great, the results have been great. So let's keep it going.
Oh my gosh, before we get to what you're looking at for tonight, thoughts on game 2?
Yeah, I mean, I think both games have just it's remarkable to me how even the series has been. Like, right, I don't think that Edmonton or I don't think one team has completely outplayed the other. And I guess that's obvious by the 1-1 score and the fact that both teams have scored 8 goals and had 174 shot attempts, both of them literally right on the nose. So I game 2 was great. I mean, the cinema was the incredible goal from McDavid right over the Draisaitl to, that was an incredible goal. And for Brad Marchand, who was acquired by the Panthers for moments like that, for him to have that goal in that moment is just great for the sport. It's great for the game, and it's great for the fans of Florida.
How about you talking about Draisaitl and the Conn Smythe and how good a value it was, and then in game 1 he comes on right after you give it out and has the game-winning goal?
Yeah, I thought, like, I still believe if Edmonton wins the cup, McDavid will probably win the award. But I thought he was mispriced at 8-1 at the time going into the series, and that's really what I thought. For him to have 2 goals is great for anyone who jumped on that number, because there is a scenario I see if and he scored again in game 2. So if he keeps scoring at a pace that he could keep up, maybe he does sneak in there. And I do see a scenario. It's a small one that he might sneak in to win the award over McDavid, but it's going to be tough. Connor McDavid's been incredible.
Something else that Sean Michael brought up, you said Corey Perry. He said that's been money too.
Yeah, keep looking at Corey Perry because he plays with McDavid, right? Like that line combination has stayed together, and Corey Perry plays that net front role. Whether it's on the power play or at even strength. Corey Perry's not much of a skater, but if you play with McDavid and he's moving around with the puck, go to the net. That's the simple thing, and Corey Perry does that as well as anybody.
I know we had some other questions in the chat, and Troy is about to answer it because we're going to start game props. You like the game to go to OT again?
So I'm going against history here, right? Like, this is only the 6th time ever that game 1 and 2 of the Stanley Cup Final has gone to overtime. And the last time the first 3 games of a Stanley Cup Final have gone to overtime was 1951. So I'm going against history, but I just can't ignore the fact that these two teams are so even. If you go back to game 7 of the 2024 Stanley Cup Final, when these two teams played each other, the last 3 games, the score has either been tied or within 1 goal for 99.6% of the time. Let me say that again. For 99.6% of the time, the score has either been tied or one team is ahead by 1. So that's just an incredible feat. Only a 77-second span in game 1 where Florida had a 2-goal advantage. Was the game, within 2 goals. So that's just an incredible feat. I just think there's plus value on the game going overtime. I see that as very value. It would really shock me if one team just completely washes away the other. I think they've really been so even. So I see a lot of value in the plus money of the game going to overtime. And so I just think that's a good number. It's too hard to ignore.
So you think Oilers are going to be the one that if this game goes, I guess if it goes to overtime, the Oilers would then win at plus 310?
Well, I'll take them on a comeback if they win from coming from behind. The Oilers have 7 comeback wins in the playoffs so far. That's the most of any team. 4 of those, they were trailing in the 3rd period. Including game 1 of this Stanley Cup Final. So if there's a team that's going to come back tonight, I kind of like the Oilers. The Oilers, their best period has been the 3rd, which I guess isn't a surprise considering they were trailing in both games 1 and 2 of in period 3. So that period they've really owned the pace of play and they've used their speed to gain an advantage. So if there's a team that comes from behind tonight, I really like the Oilers in that situation.
Then you like Panthers first of 5 shots on goal, minus 125. This is a very interesting market. How do you cap that?
Yeah, I thought that was when I saw that, I thought that was very interesting to me as well. Look, I mentioned this on my last time on here. The teams at home, when you start a Stanley Cup final, have so much electricity in the building, on the bench. You really want a good start, and the Panthers are a good first period team. They've actually been their best period of this series so far has been the first. They really took it to them, and eventually, after the Oilers scored 66 seconds into the game of Game 1, the Panthers had a great response and came back. They owned the pace of play also in Game 2, and they actually had they scored. They had a lead in the first period of Game 2 as well. I think they have players who they want to get the crowd on their side. I think they have a bunch of skilled players. So I like them to get to the first 5 shots on goal. And in the first period, I see them trying to set the pace of play, right? Dictate. The Oilers love to speed things up, right? They're fast. That's their advantage over Florida. They want to push play. I see the Panthers at home when they have second change, being able to dictate the pace and probably reaching 5 shots on goal first before the Oilers do.
I was looking at the chat, and Sergio, Anton Lundell plus shots on goal.
So I've loved that line for Florida. Anton Lundell plays with Eetu Luostarinen and Brad Marchand, and those 3 players have dominated their shifts. And like I said, with the series now moving to Florida, the home team gets second change. So Paul Maurice is going to be able to dictate which matchups that line plays against. And if Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are split up, which is probably the right move for Edmonton to do to, balance out their lines and balance out their lineups, that third line for Florida, Lundell, Luostarinen, and Marchand, probably get a favorable matchup. And you can see a lot of shots on goal from that line if they dominate their play like they have in the first 2 games.
Then Sean Michael, I'm going to turn this kind of into a question. He talks about the defensive series as we get deeper into it. How would you change your approach at looking at these games, and at what point? Because now we're in Game 3.
It's probably the one thing that surprised me so far in the series is how well the offense. I expected there to be goals, but I expected it to be goals because of shaky goaltending and shaky defensive play. And that really hasn't been the case. These goals are being scored because the offenses on both sides have been so good. And the goalies have actually played well. They're just being beat by higher quality offense. I do expect as the series goes on, that tends to happen as goals tend to dry out just because the goalies are good and offense tends to dry out. And that's, scoring goals in the NHL is very hard. And so as series go on, you tend to get more of a defensive minded series, which we saw when these 2 teams met last season in the Stanley Cup final. Overs were hitting all the time. And then the last 2 games, we're under. So I do think that we're in store for that kind of series. It's just, when does that take place, right? It could happen as early as tonight, could happen in Game 4, could happen in Game 5. I do expect at some point for things to really tighten up and for teams to get a little bit, you really defend very well when the tide is against you in the NHL. So at some point there will be a little bit more emphasis on defense. It just depends on when that actually happens. I think it might happen tonight. I don't expect if I were to handicap this, I kind of like the defense to take over starting tonight. Remember, Edmonton, they have only lost the Game 2 was their 3rd loss since the first round of the playoffs, and they've responded in the previous 2 games with shutouts after that. So Edmonton has responded well when losing in this postseason. So I expect the defense to start picking up tonight.
Well, let's talk about some props and how we can take advantage. Even though we think some defense is going to show up, there still needs to be scoring in order to win. And Connor McDavid over 1.5 points is at -110. Why is Connor McDavid going over?
He is electric. There's just no way to explain how awesome he is. He's crushing it. So he has 23 speed bursts over 20 miles an hour in this series. No one else has more than 8. He is the fastest player on the ice by far in this series. And his goal scoring. So he hasn't scored in this series, but he does have 5 points. He has 5 assists. I expect at some point Florida has to start putting more players on him, and that he's the best playmaker in the league. He just dishes it off to a teammate for a scoring chance. He's generated 104 scoring chances in the postseason. No one else has more than 76. That's almost 30, a gap of almost 30 between him and the next closest player. He generates so much offense and draws so much attention to him that it's easy to see him. It's why over 1.5 points is still minus money. He's the only player that would even do that. I'd love to give you the value of going under with him. I just don't see it. All the trends tell me that he's going to keep scoring.
Okay. Well, I've got people here that think a parlay could be happening. Like Mark says, Edmonton money line over 6.5, game to reach OT, McDavid 2+ points, yay or nay?
I think that's the only way to value like that. That's good value, right? Because you parlay McDavid over 1.5 points. That's the way to maximize your value, is to parlay that. And so I would definitely agree with that. That's where I'm leaning. I do think Edmonton wins this game. The over is what makes me skeptical. I really think at some point
you could tell people they're wrong. That's why they're asking.
I wouldn't go over. I'd go under in this game, because I do think goal scoring is going to dry up. But I like McDavid to score. That one I might just switch around to an under and make it more profitable.
I love that Sean Michael said first goal bets. Ariel's going to be like shaking my head. Yeah, I don't bet these, but I think it's great value at 13-1. Sam Bennett, why is he the first goal scorer, and why do you think he'll score anyway?
So last time I was on, I don't really like this either. I'm agreeing with you. I don't like first goal scorers. I do like anytime goal scorers if I was in that market. Look, I do think Florida's going to score first. I do think they're going to have the bulk of the pressure in the first period. So that's why I'm choosing a Panther in this market. Sam Bennett leads the playoffs in goals with 13, and 12 of them have come on the road. So he's only scored 1 at home. Sam Bennett is a perfect example of how money and uncertainty can be big motivators for any athlete. Sam Bennett's a pending free agent. He's playing for his next contract, and it's no surprise to me that he's having a huge postseason because of it. He wants to make a lot more money next year when he enters free agency this summer. And he's been, I don't know if Florida is at this point without Sam Bennett's goal scoring, and something tells me he's going to keep going.
Sam Bennett, a different player in the playoffs, according to Josh Gold, absolute beast. Sergio loves your Nurse play at +1.5 block shots, but it's -168. So would you suggest parlaying that in any capacity?
I might parlay this, or I might choose a different Oiler defenseman. The reason I went with Nurse is because he's expected to get more ice time tonight. The Oilers, when they went through practice yesterday and their morning skate this morning, had moved Nurse up to that first line pair with Evan Bouchard. Evan Bouchard is an offensive defenseman. He likes to score goals. He likes to jump into the rush for the Oilers. And sometimes when he jumps into the play, like what happened in game 2, a player like Brad Marchand sneaks behind, gets behind him, and gets breakaway goals. And he had 2 of them in game 2 and ended up being the difference in the game. Moving Nurse to that pair just gives a little bit more speed behind Bouchard, so he could still stay up in the play and maybe trust his defensive partner to get back in those situations. So with the added ice time, I just expect him to be able to block more shots. Florida's a team that loves to generate offense off of their cycle. They throw pucks on net at will, and sometimes those pucks find shin pads of defenders, and Nurse has he's one of the best shot blockers on the team. So I would either parlay that, or I could also choose a different defenseman. Jake Wallman is a great defensive defenseman who blocks a lot of shots as well. Brett Kulak is another option. So any of the Oilers defensemen, I really like them to go over their shot block prop.
Sean, you said a goal in the first 10 minutes at -110 is not a bad bet. I'm assuming that means for Sam Bennett to have a goal in the first, or no, just a goal in general. Sorry, he meant a goal in general. Do you like that, even though you think it'll be more defensive?
Well, I don't want to contradict myself. I was very
proud. You said this last game and it hit. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like to bet the same thing twice in a row when I hit it in the first game.
I would agree with you there, and that's exactly where I was going to go. Is because I hit it because that hit in the first 2 games of this series. Maybe I stay away from that one tonight, just because Lightning doesn't tend to strike 3 times in a row. But then again, I just picked overtime, so maybe I do see that happening. I do. The first 10 minutes, I expect the Panthers to be on the offense, right? And whether that's a goal, I don't know, but I expect them to dominate zone play and get the puck and let them try to establish a forecheck. I don't expect them to result in a goal. I expect it to result in a lot of shots. I expect it to result in a lot of pressure, but I don't know if I expect a goal to happen in the first 10 minutes. So that's when I probably shy away from.
Sean says that seems free. I don't know. Is anything free, Sean? Not everything's free. Come on, get out of here. It's not free, but listen, I think that it makes sense that we're going to start to see some defense prevailing in this spot. And I'm a little annoyed right now because my freaking Bluetooth mic that's what I've been distracted by, is it's dead. So I can't, I have to now reach for my freaking laptop and scroll through things.
So can I share a little story? So I ran in a race on Saturday.
Oh, what race? It wasn't the Belmont Stakes.
It was not. It was a 5K for charity in the town.
You're a runner?
I'm a little bit of a runner. I run more now than I used to, is how I'll say that. But my Bluetooth ran out 10 yards into the race, and it was annoying. It was the worst.
So you had to run with no music?
Run with no music, silence, just the sound of my footsteps. It was brutal. It was horrible.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm not going to complain about my, now I broke it. I definitely broke it. Okay. Now I just, okay, whatever. I'm a hot mess. We got the Panthers at -146, Edmonton at +122, total at 6.5. I know you already said in the game props that you do like for Edmonton to win from behind, which you're getting some really good value at. However, does that mean people should bet Edmonton money line?
I'm on Edmonton money line. I think that's a really solid play. I think this seems to me like a heavyweight fight, right? Like when those old classic heavyweight fights, when the fighters would throw a punch and expect to get punched back. This is that series for me where I think Edmonton threw a punch in game 1. I think Florida punched right back in game 2. And I expect Edmonton to come back in game 3 and punch right away. So I like Edmonton in this spot to go up in this series. But Edmonton loves to score goals, right? They like a high goal scoring environment for them to succeed. This will be a real key for me because I think that the difference from last year where they lost in 7 games and the difference to this year where I think they're going to win is I think they're versatile and they can win in multiple ways. And I like them winning in a low scoring environment in Florida tonight. So I'm on the Oilers.
Okay, Oilers win. We've got a bunch of props we just gave out. If you missed it, you can head over to the YouTube at Prop Queen Sports and watch all this back. Troy Perlowitz, where can everyone find you? I'm
at Troy_Pearl, but you could also find us at NHL Fantasy on both X and Instagram. We'd love to collaborate and communicate with you.